decided to do a vlog of this guitar since it's sort of a special case instrument. This is my drummer Matt's Les Paul Jr. It's custom made. His father made it for him for Christmas. So it came in for just a normal setup with a couple complaints. Looks like the G here is a little bit loosey-goosey. We're going to try to fix that up. And also, the tone pot needs to be resoldered. It looks like there's a cold joint there. But other than that, it's a gorgeous guitar. This heel couldn't be much more perfect. It's almost Paul Reed Smith-like. It's just beautiful. The contours are all done beautifully. No sign of a joint up here. It's just awesome guitar. So let's get into it and see what we got. Alright, let me show you what's going on here with this tone pot, how I came to the diagnosis that I did. It might actually not even be soldered looking at it. What happens, you see that? It's not working all the time. So when you get it just right, it pops back into place. So we are gonna resolder that. Now, one thing I've learned about being a guitar tech very early on, and one of these things that's probably more obvious to most guys who work with electronics in a sensitive environment, is that you absolutely need to have some surgical drapes here. I was working on somebody's Strat. It was a white Strat, and I was doing some electronics work on it, and a piece of solder came off and fell, boom, right onto the poly finish. Luckily, since solder solidifies so quickly, it just brushed off right away, but it was one of these things that gave me the most intense heart attack, and that's the closest I ever come to actually dying, I think, is dropping a piece of solder on somebody's white American Strat. That was really awful. Alright, let's see what this do. You know what? I should be wearing glasses right now. Let's not make this be the video where I actually lose vision in one of my eyes. Alright. I always tell you to heat the work first. And apply for a nice, not cold solder joint. Beautiful. Alright, man. That is going to work brilliantly now. Back in business. Drill always makes things easier. I'm so much more apt to crack open a Strat multiple times when I have this thing around, because anybody who's ever worked on the innards of a Strat before knows that those pick guards are hell on earth to get off unless you have a drill. After I'm done with this, I'll show you a little trick to get these knobs off. These knobs for Les Paul style guitars, actually this works on Strats as well, they can seem almost impossible to pull off, but all you need is a little piece of twine. Okay, so these little knobs here, when you're trying to get these off of a guitar, you're yanking and yanking and you're wondering if you're gonna break it. Actually, you won't. What you do, you take a little piece of twine, just wrap it underneath once, just pull up just a little bit, medium pressure. They come right off. Volume knob, perfect. Tone knob, perfect. All right, that is that. Now let's move on to the simpler stuff. All right, when setting up a guitar, there are a couple things you have to do. There's like an order to things. You have to, first of all, before you do anything, you have to make sure you have the proper relief. The way that I do it, and the way that a lot of guys do it, is to create a straight edge with the string by pressing the first fret and the final fret, checking around, sort of seeing, actually this is relieved very nicely. You could check it in a couple different areas too. Some guys say 17. You know, because what happens is the truss rod stops sort of being effective at a certain point here, so you want to check it from a couple different spots to sort of make sure you're not missing anything here. And you want to check it on both ends as well. They did a really good job putting this together. It's a very well built instrument. So the neck relief is the first thing. Then what you want to do is you want to check the action. The action and the neck relief kind of sort of go hand in hand, but not so much. It's a little bit more kind of what's going on down here. It's maybe a combination of the two. So what you're looking for about 70 thou at the 12th fret. It's a tiny bit high. Maybe a little bit. You're looking for about 70 thou at the 6th string on the 12th fret, and maybe 60. If you can get away with like 60 all the way across, it's not so bad. But the problem is the frequency of this string is a lot more, of these strings is a lot more intense. It's a lot bigger than the frequency created by these strings, so they flop around a lot more. Sometimes you want to give them a little bit more room to work with. I might try to drop the bridge a tiny bit and see what happens. It looks like it's kind of almost decked already though. Interesting. Let's see what we get out of it. For doing work on any bridge like this, you have to loosen the string tension because you don't want to strip, especially these little intonation screws here. These are very delicate parts. And if you don't loosen the strings, if there's string tension on these, you'll probably get away with it a couple times, but eventually you're probably going to break them. Wow, that is decked. That is absolutely decked. Yep, it's decked on both ends. We can't get this action really any lower. The neck relief is too good. I don't want to mess with it. Try to come up with a little bit of a solution for that. The action on it is actually pretty good. I mean, it's a little bit higher than the action that I keep on my guitars, but it's a little bit of an issue when you're at such an extreme adjustment on a guitar like this, because if somewhere down the road you find that you want to lower your action, there's just nowhere to go. I mean, maybe, no, that's preposterous. What we will do, actually, while we're here, when we have the string tension all the way off, I'm going to add some graphite lubricant to the nut. Whenever somebody's complaining of tuning issues, the first thing that they'll always try to tell you is, oh yeah, this is a little bit loosey-goosey up here and it's affecting my tuning. But actually, a big part of kind of what happens with tuning is that the string's getting caught somewhere. It's not flowing freely, either at the saddles or at the nut. So what I'm going to do, this is a little bit, maybe I might pencil down here a little bit, but up here I have some graphite shavings that we can try out. If you've ever played a really cheap acoustic guitar, or any guitar really, you'll be tuning. Up here it goes, you tune, then you hear click, you hear like a little creak, and then it snaps like into tune, or usually higher. What's going on there is your string's getting caught up, and that guitar will not stay in tune very well. So that doesn't seem to be an issue with this guitar, but since he did mention tuning stability, we will do this at the very least. Another little tip with this, if you're not using a pencil up here, if you're using graphite shavings, what I actually do is I try to concentrate it on this end towards the body of the guitar, because what happens is as you string the strings up, they move this way. So it'll actually, if you concentrate your graphite shavings towards the front, it'll kind of, as you tune it up, it'll kind of bring them into place where you want them. Alright, let's take a look at this one more time and make sure there isn't something else we can do to get this action, maybe a tiny bit more downstairs. Whenever I do something wacky like completely get rid of all the string tension, I always play around with it for a little bit and then retune, because everything takes a second to kind of get back into shape. This is a really nice guitar. Last thing you always do is check the intonation. I like to check the intonation in a couple different ways. What we have with the open string, you want to get that as close as humanly possible. There. harmonic degrees. All right, it's a little sharpish in the front. All right, the whole thing is sharp. So if your fretted note is sharp, you have to move this back. It's kind of weird. It's like the one thing kind of like that seems kind of counterintuitive. Everything, when you move this back, you're lengthening the string. Usually when you lengthen the string, you're making it, you're making the whole deal, you're taking the pitch up. So it's sort of counterintuitive. You would think that if you're moving it back, you would actually be making it more sharp, but actually, when you're doing intonation, moving back will flatten your note that your fretted note here. Oh, I see. This is a Phillips. It's a combination. It's a Phillips or flathead. Don't be fooled by small hardware. Some guys see small hardware and automatically assume you need a small Phillips head. Some of these small pieces have, do require a bigger Phillips head. It's just the size of the Phillips head screwdriver required and the size of the piece of hardware do not match up. I've learned that. Got plenty of room to work with. Plenty of room. These screws are sticking out a pretty decent amount, so that's a good thing. We'll be able to get the intonation nasty on this thing. I don't know if you can hear it on, it might be a little bit too subtle, but there is a tiny bit of creaking still, even with the graphite, so that's probably what's leading to some of the tuning stability issues with this guitar. What I might do is take some very fine grit sandpaper, not even a file, not even a nut slot file, because that would probably be too much, and just try to smooth these out a little bit. For something like that, where you graphite and they're still catching a little bit, you just want to sand it just a tiny bit. You're not trying to change the shape of the nut slot, because this nut's pretty well fitted. So you don't want to change the shape of the nut slot at all. But if you do find it catching a little bit after graphite, you can just take some very sort of fine grit sandpaper and get your nut slots a little bit smoother even still, and then re-graphite. You should be in good shape. All right, 1000 grit sandpaper. That is what we are going to use. We are going to err on the side of caution. I try to minimize the number of times that I really completely take the tension off the neck. So for this particular procedure, we are just going to loosen and retune one string at a time. I didn't hear any creaks on this E when I took it back up, so that's a good sign. The reason I tap these notes on is that sometimes this tuner gets a little confused when it comes up from so low, so I want to give my ear a little bit of a target. Good. I didn't hear any creaks that time either, so our tuning stability might be improved. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. There's a little bit of roughness there. That is precisely what's going on. But yeah, again, like I was saying, we absolutely are not reshaping this in any way. We are just trying to take off any jaggedness in the gentlest possible manner. Cool. All right. I've been noodling around on this thing for like probably 10 minutes now. You're like riding it hard. So tuning stability just seems to be better. This seems to have helped. One of the last things I'll always do to somebody's guitar before I let it out of the shop, if I notice that the sort of string tags here are long, I'll always give them a little bit of a hack. For some reason, that looks just more professional to me. So let's get this truss rod cover back on and put it through the fender. See how it likes a little more gain. Likes a little more gain. that is that. Your guitar is ready to go, Matty B.